Welcome to Auto Asphyxiation. It is Lark.
And Kimberly.
That's right. Another exciting episode of Auto Asphyxiation. And we're gonna be talking about something that's not necessarily about cars, but yet it's weird because it's kind of connected to cars and transportation and urbanism. We're talking about the fact that our Secretary of Health, I'm just laughing about that. Who the fuck is he? Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not Robert F. Kennedy, who was murdered in Los Angeles, my
Yeah, who's
hometown.
a good Kennedy.
A good Kennedy, has tried to get rid of vaccines. And so we're in a situation where we're kind of like, vaccines, are they real or not? We know they're real.
We do know that they're real.
And
I'm a
they
nurse. They're
work.
absolutely real.
And they work. But apparently, I'm in this situation where I'm like, insincerity or ignorance. And a lot of people kind of think this is just an ideology. He just feels that vaccines don't work.
He doesn't like the vibe that vaccines give off.
Like the vibe. But in my head, I think about the first COVID, and I think insincerity. I feel that they are literally, we'll go back to this later, but I always say malfeasance, nonfeasance, or misfeasance. Are you actively trying to kill us? People who might vote against you? Do you just not know because you're not? Oh, we've used ignorant because we can't call people stupid anymore. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, or non-feasance, where you tried to do something, but you did it wrong. So, where are we on the game wheel of, I don't know, we're in this weird situation now where I was kind of like, wow, anyway, I'm going to say this. How should public health leaders be held accountable when they spread misinformation, especially from positions of power? What do you wait? You know what? That was kind of the first question, but Kimberly, what do you think about all of this insanity?
Well, I think first and foremost that any public health leader should be an actual medical professional. RFK Jr.'s credentials are environmental law with some adjunct professorships at law school. He has absolutely no medical background or education. He didn't even go into like malpractice law, where you do learn some medicine. He has no experience in healthcare, medicine, or the public health realm. So when public health leaders promote dangerous misinformation, I believe that they should be absolutely removed from office. There is no devil's advocate or two sides debate about vaccine science. It works. Um, First and foremost, it works. All medical interventions, including the supplements that your favorite celebrities are shilling on television, that you take and pay lots of money for, come with potential side effects and risks. Everything, anything that you put in your body comes with a potential side effect and risk. But the benefits to vaccines far outweigh the risks.
And I think this is something that's really important. And I think this is some kind of the reason why this for me is very terrifying. Um, and I and I'm sorry, mom, but I use this example so many times. My mom is on the left. She's a very radical leftist person. She's always like, "Oh no, the vaccines, the pharmaceutical, like, industrial complex is trying to kill me." Look, there is this kind of like this situation where in the United States and just in the West where it's kind of like either it's like this very binary thing. Well, it's not if it's not 100%, then how do we know? You know, science doesn't work like that. Science isn't a situation where it's 100%. We don't, nothing is 100%. And also in science, we don't prove things, we support things because things can change. We can have differences. All these things happen. And I think I'm really disappointed with the fact that there are some people on the left, I think was one of the people, the Green Party guy that we were talking about one day.
Yeah, the guy that dropped out.
That dropped out. Oh,
Yeah,
poor baby. You left because people made fun of you. Who made fun of you? That was us.
that
We
was
made you
us.
leave. Great job, Kimberly. Great
he
job.
didn't he didn't answer his vaccine question that I asked him several times in various social media platforms. He did not answer it.
And he blocked her
Yes.
because whatever. He blocked her, and then essentially Kimberly, I'm saying this. Kimberly made him like the Green Party candidate drop out of the governor's race. Great job, Kimberly. Yay! Because there are too many people on the left who don't believe in science. It's like, okay, I get it. You have this whole thing where you think people are trying to get you. People are trying to get you, but not like that. Not like that. No, go ahead, Kimberly. I see you.
not not like that, no. And it's, there comes a time where you are like, I'm very leftist. I'm very anarcho leftist leaning. Have a lot of healthy mistrust for authority figures, but I'm also an educated and critical thinking individual. And I know as a nurse how to read the research papers and the evidence that shows that vaccines work. They may not guarantee 100% that you're not going to get that illness, but they are going to make sure that you do not get the illness to an extreme complication that might have you hospitalized or have some other complications up to and including death.
I think this is very important. You know, these vaccines are important because there's supported evidence that they work. I look at photos of people who've gotten smallpox, people who've gotten measles, polio, people with iron lungs, and the fact that we're going to go back to that, and he, Robert F. Kennedy, I can't believe he's ignorant. There is an idea, I feel like a eugenicist strain going through all this. Like, if you can't sustain being exposed to COVID or whatever other disease or illness that's there, then maybe you should die because we don't want to spend extra money on saving people who are quote unquote weak. That's kind of like why I didn't want to use the term when I used the term stupid earlier. I apologize, but I think the reason why I don't want to use it is because we use this whole there's a lot of eugenicists out there who kind of feel that survival, who have misinterpreted Darwin and essentially has this idea that if people who get sick should probably just die because they're weak and they are a weak link and they can't help capitalism. And if you're not rich, then you should die. And people are kind of like, well, are they really saying that? Maybe they just think that vaccines don't work. I promise you, rich people, and I think this is the thing that irritates me about the Green Party. The Green Party in New Jersey, because they allow people who have been redlined, who have been economically oppressed. I'm African American, essentially people who are African American who have been so isolated in New Jersey, where they don't believe in vaccines. And they're like, well, that's a cultural thing. It's cultural. So they allow these people to like just espouse certain things. But guess what? You know, the people in the Green Party who are middle class, who are professional class, who are white, they get their vaccines, but they are allow these people who clearly are explicitly ignorant, willfully ignorant, to spread this misinformation everywhere. And I'm just like, you have a part, like this is not okay. And I think about the inconsistencies now with the CDC, the FDA, the HHS, and our impact on public trust for people who already don't believe, the whole vaccine situation and like, anything you want to add to that?
I think that inconsistent vaccine guidelines and mixed messaging with our public health organization absolutely leads to mistrust, and rightfully so. When you don't have like your leaders having a consistent message, the public is unsure of who to listen to, and not everybody has a medical education and the ability to read papers in the way that I do. We saw this during COVID-19. They had mixed messaging and changing guidelines very early on in the pandemic. But the problem, I think, is very twofold because in our very technological age, information moves so quickly that people expect information to be instantaneous. So when something is happening and you don't get that information to them if you take the time to really research and really read through everything that's coming out about a public health scare, you run the risk of being accused of remaining silent or dragging your feet and not getting the information out to the public quickly enough. So we saw this in COVID early on with mixed messaging as far as masking goes, not masking, all of these other things. And I really think that comes out because there is that risk that leadership runs of if we take too long, the public is going to accuse us of staying silent.
And I'm just kind of like really upset about the whole fact that like, places in the South, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and this is a place where people don't really realize this, but most Black people live in the South, even today. Um, and of course, that's because of chattel slavery, but most Black people live in the South. And now we have a situation in the South where it's just like we don't believe in vaccines, we don't believe in these things, and this greatly impacts and greatly has a potential to harm people in democratic areas. It's not just about an ideological type of a situation. I think about Florida. I have a friend that moved to Florida. She is, they are transgender. And their child had autism. Her child is autistic. To use like identity first, autistic. Her child's autistic. She moved to Florida. And essentially, like, they're like, now they're like, oh, no vaccines, they're gonna shut her. And I'm like, there are people who can't get vaccines because they're old, because they have immune compromised conditions. And now that you're saying, oh, you don't have to vaccinate, it's amazingly selfish and amazingly harmful. I started one of my professional career started off as a moderate to severe special education teacher. I had students that had like tubes and like, ventilators that I taught. They could not get vaccinated because it might kill them. Their immune system was so weak.
I've worked with numerous different kinds of immunocompromised children who have had organ transplants. A lot of people in the public don't realize that if you have an organ transplant, even something as simple as a kidney or a cornea, you have to be on something that suppresses your immune system for the rest of your life so that your body doesn't reject that foreign object or that organ. And that means that you have to partner with your doctor to specifically decide which vaccines you can and cannot take. So people that have had organ transplants, people that are cancer patients, people that have HIV, AIDS, or certain types of autoimmune conditions can lead to them not being able to be vaccinated as broadly as somebody that doesn't have those conditions.
And then I think about, we have, the one thing that's interesting about state rights is that I've always kind of hated it because of its roots in chattel enslavement. But, states like Massachusetts are really being like proactive and like essentially using the state's rights in order to like give people access to vaccines and, essentially offering support and offering people like, oh, if your insurance doesn't cover it, we'll cover it for you. Um, do you feel like other? Well, I know that the Northeast and California have created like these alliances so that they
Yes.
can make sure that people get like vaccinated. But I'm just like in my own head, I'm so disgusted because while I'm so happy, I'm so really happy that we're doing that on the East Coast, we're doing that on the West Coast. The fact that most Black people live in the South, it's essentially like we're leaving these people to die with these racist, horrible people.
Well, and that's really like, these are the consequences that we will see. And that's something that it's not something that we might see or something that is a question. This is something that is going to happen now because Florida has decided. And by the way, their Surgeon General did absolutely no research before making that mandate that they don't have to be vaccinated before entering school. He did no research whatsoever. But the things that we will see coming out of Florida is increased rates of preventable childhood diseases. So things like measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, simple things like chicken pox, that like our generation dealt with, but like the later generations have had vaccines for. Those will also lead to increased rates of death, disability from those childhood diseases. It will lead to a breakdown in herd immunity, which will then cause immunocompromised people who cannot get those vaccines. Like I mentioned before, the HIV/AIDS patients, cancer patients, people suffering from certain types of autoimmune diagnoses, they will begin to get ill, and then those viruses and bacteria will begin to mutate because that's what they like to do. That's what their job in life is to do. They're not evil. They don't have an agenda. Their genetic makeup tells them make more, spread around, change it up so you can spread around more quickly and more fast. That's what they do. That's not their fault. That's just what they're supposed to do. Some things that we can see from measles, which measles right now is rapidly spreading through parts of Texas. It's also been detected in a lot of other states. A measles infection can cause lifelong deafness, lifelong muteness. It can cause immune amnesia for up to 6 months to a year after you recover from your measles infection. So that means that your immune system is completely brand new, essentially, and you are vulnerable to anything that you come across. You can die from measles. And side effects of a measles infection can take decades to appear. Much like the Epstein-Barr virus, measles can kind of hide in your body.
This is terrifying. Like these are things that we didn't have to worry about, and now we have to worry about. And people like get people like, well, I'm vaccinated, but what about other people? What about grandma? I remember, I was working part of the campus grant, which is Child Care Access Means Parents in School, which is a federal grant. I had $1 million grant that I was working with community colleges with. And during the beginning of COVID, what was happening was that the parents weren't getting sick, the kids were being fine, grandma was dying. Essentially, grandma was dying, and a lot of these older childcare workers were dying. And because the thing is that we can only find out the data in regards to death rates if a job is like unionized. So essentially, we don't know how many grandmas who were taking care of kids died owing to COVID. And I think this is something that people should really think about. Like, do you care about people who are over 60, who are like immune compromised, who have chronic illnesses like diabetes or high blood pressure, which a lot of working class people have, across cultural lines, whether they're Black, white, Latino, etc. If you're working class, it's a huge, not probably, but it's a huge probability that you have one of these diseases, not because you didn't take care of yourself, but because being poor is a challenging thing, and you end up getting sick. You end up, you know, I think about it like I was talking to my husband and I was like, I'm able to get fresh fruit and vegetables all the time because my husband, he has a PhD, he's a biologist, and he goes shopping like every 2 days. And I think about it, I'm like, I'm able to buy bananas, buy fruit, buy oranges, buy vegetables because it's like, oh, I know I'm gonna go back to the store. I can buy a little bit. And these are kind of things like when you have chronic illnesses, these are the kind of things that kind of like support your immune system. And people who are working class don't have that to just, because of the car, the whole situation, getting to the grocery store, having like storage to store things like, so essentially you have to go to the grocery store every 2 days. If you eat vegetables or fruit, you've got to go to the grocery store every 2 days. I know you're kind of like,
You,
what's that got to do with anything? But I'm like, this has to go ahead. We're going to say,
it's all under the umbrella of public health. All under the umbrella of public health. Our cars choking up our freeways and our air and causing so much pollution all comes under health. Not being able to access fresh fruit and vegetables because you don't have a car or you live in a place that doesn't have good public transportation is all under the umbrella of public health.
I know, and it doesn't seem like it, but it is. And it's like very just, I I was happy, but at the same time I was kind of mad because I was kind of like, wow, I wouldn't be able to get fruit and vegetables every day if I was like by myself, just living by myself. I'm able to do that. And be really explicit. I was able to do that because I'm married to a white man who is like third generation PhD student, not student, PhD person, you know? And this is kind of how the situation works. And it's not fair. Like, and this is like, we are our working class community is dying because of these horrible people. And I think about, this, like we're gonna go about communication. Like, what do we do in regards to like getting the message out to people? We have, Trump is doing this thing where, oh no, I'm totally for vaccines, but then he cuts everybody's funding. So essentially, all these rural hospitals, all these inner city hospitals are cut. What responsibility does the media and, in regards to the media, progressive organizations have in regards to this? I mean, that was a weird point. That's kind of a big question, but like, what do you think of some ideas?
I think the media right now is playing way too much devil's advocate. The mainstream media is very much playing devil's advocate. They're very much sane washing anything that comes out of Trump and RFK Jr. And they have been for quite some time. So for my own self, for my own education, I try to find content creators who are actual physicians or public health professionals. I try to seek out my own education. It's unfortunately it's up in the air whether you can really trust our official public health websites right now. So it's very difficult to combat the misinformation that exists in the public sphere and how people respond to it because people's beliefs about vaccines are very much tied into their own personal belief systems. So you can show them evidence and it doesn't matter because it's tied into their own personal belief system.
Yeah, there's just situations called the dam effect. And in the dam effect, let me first say it's essentially if people who live under the dam are the most likely to believe the dam won't fail because they feel that they have nothing. They're like, I can't fix this, so I'm just gonna pretend like it's not happening. It's like this is not happening. And I also think about the fact about oh, something is really interesting is happening is that we have a situation that people are not vaccinating their dogs. They're not vaccinating their dogs. And essentially, rabies is incurable after 48 hours.
Yes.
And it's just like 40% of people aren't vaccinating their dogs because of this insanity that we have and this purview, this worldview, this thing that we have that's going on. And here is the thing that just it's so disheartening to me. It's so distressing to me that they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Yeah, this is was it nearly 40% of people believe canine vaccines are unsafe, and 37% believe that vaccines could lead to their dogs developing cognitive issues, including autism.
I'm sorry. But look, I'm sorry. First and foremost, as a neurodivergent individual and as a person who has worked in severely autistic classrooms, as you have as well, your excuse of not getting a dog or a child vaccinated because you're afraid that they're going to get autism is a fucking insult to the neurodivergent community. That you would rather have a disease ridden dead pet or child is deplorable. And frankly, you should have your children and your pets taken away from you.
That is like I think the thing too. It's like wow, you think people with autism are so awful, you'd rather your child die than have autism. That's wild as hell. Just wild. But also the thing is like we're using like purview, but here's the thing is so evil. When the first COVID situation happened, Jared, which is Trump's son-in-law, he actually had a really good plan. And you know what happened? They were like, this isn't Vanity Fair. I'm going to link it. I'm going to link it in. I'm going to link the story so you guys know that I am telling the truth. They looked at it and they said, if we vaccinate people, it will help the Democratic Party.
That's absolutely true.
And so then they decided we're not going to vaccinate people because that's just going to help the Democrats and we need them to die. And I think
That's 100% true. And Trump has used that demographic, the he's used some sort of blue demographic to figure out where he's going to send FEMA money, relief money, dollars, COVID vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. That is absolutely 100% true. And RFK Jr. is a useful idiot. I don't think he's bright enough to be in on the malfeasance that everybody has, but he is a useful idiot for them.
and that's the whole thing, yeah. There are so many useful idiots that are out there, and there are so many useful idiots, and I believe that RFK really believes what he's saying. Like he's completely outrageous, is completely, but I know that Trump knows what he's doing. I feel that Trump knows exactly what he's doing, and I feel that there are people who are not idiots. My apologies. I wish I could find a different word, but it's happening.
But you got sometimes you have to call it for what it is. There are some
Yeah.
people that are useful idiots who are RFK Jr. absolutely, or his brainworm absolutely believes what he is saying.
Yeah, he does
He
believe it. He believes
he
we know
wholeheartedly.
people. My
Yeah,
go ahead. We're
he wholeheartedly does. And like, to a large extent, I think that Trump is also a useful idiot because there's larger schemes at play here that these loud cult of personality people are being manipulated to reach their goals. And one of them is to have widespread disease and people die off.
I don't think people really kind of understand. I think it's just like, oh, well, we have a different opinion. I'm like, there are the most scary part of the whole don't have vaccine things is that the idea, and not the idea, the fact that I know that they actually are trying to kill people that believe in vaccines. They're actually trying to kill us. They're trying to like, oh, well, you can't drive the train because if you're on the train, you're going to be next to people. You'll talk to people. If you get rid of vaccines, you get rid of community, you get rid of public transportation, you get rid of community colleges, you get rid of the way people learn and communicate and activate and organize. And I think people think that this is like, oh, this is not actually like we're not thinking about that. Yes, they are. The people who are behind Trump and they do. They want us. If you've taken a look at Baldani's luxury communism, accelerationism, they essentially feel that if you are not part of the class of people making money or creating wealth, you can die. You're literally just wasted space. You're no, you essentially they have as much respect for you as they do for the trees, the water. You're a tool. And I don't think people quite understand. This is not about an idea. This is about the fact that they don't think you're a human being. If you're working class, and when you talk about like this is not a euphemism for black or Latino. If you are working class, if you're a person that is not wealthy, they don't feel that you are a human being. Your job to them is beast of burden, and if you can't do that because you're too sick, or you're too old, or you're too female, or you're too trans, you can die. And people think that I'm like joking. I'm like, they literally know what they're doing. They've written books about it. Like we think about the whole like, the Project 2025. Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Project I can't remember. Project 2025. They explicitly said what they're gonna do and what they think about you. I'm not even like making this up. It was in Vanity Fair, it was in Project 2025. They literally, if you don't make wealth, they think you're not a human being. And I don't think they're like, people really want to make this about profit and like capitalism and materialism, or like, they don't really hate us. It's just because, no, they do hate you. Like, what is wrong with you? What do you
They
not
don't
understand?
they don't think you're a human being, and most importantly, they don't think that you're an American. Like they don't think that you're an American. They think that this land mass here is created for wealthy elite white men that are Christian, and that is it.
Yes. I think something that you need to really understand is this. When they say white, they mean human. This is why Irish people were not white. This is why people who are Jewish were not viewed as white. Italians weren't viewed as white. It's not an actual ethnicity. It's, well, I mean, it is, but it's not. It, essentially it was a shortcut for human. And they can't say you're human and you're not human, because then people would be like, I am a human being. So they use white as a shortcut. And I want you to know that just like people who are Irish and Jewish and Italian were brought into whiteness, they can throw you out of whiteness. I think about a story in California in the early 1900s. This man, he was from India. He was, I think it was Sikh. He had a thriving business in San Francisco. He even had a white wife. And I don't mean like in a weird way, but he did. His wife was white. He had half white children. He's Indian. He's 1900s. And essentially, they made this law and they essentially said, you're not white anymore. Because he said, I'm white because India is Caucasia or the land of Caucasian or whatever. So he went to court. He lost. They said, you're not white. I don't care if you're from the land of Caucasian. You're not white to us. They stripped him of his house, of his business. They essentially dehumanized him and he committed suicide. So this whole idea that you can remain in whiteness because you are European or whatever, they don't care.
They
They
don't.
don't
They
care.
don't.
They, I'll promise you, go to Los Angeles. Go to Los Angeles and you'll see the highest, fastest rising of homeless people are white women. Because essentially, if you can't make babies and if they don't want to have sex with you, then you can go to hell. They don't give a fuck about you. I'm not going to be like explicit, but I think people are kind of like, oh no, that couldn't happen to me. I'm white. I'm protected. No, you're not. Unless you're
No, you're
rich.
not.
Unless you're rich, you're not protected. They can throw you, just like they brought you into whiteness after World War II, they can throw you out. Los Angeles is a great demonstration of that. They don't need whiteness anymore in Los Angeles. They could just use a computer. Technology can replace, it's like AI, AI replace engineers, replace physicians. it will also replace the whole idea of whiteness, which I just
Oh,
thought about that.
a- it absolutely can, and don't, and that's even large. Like going to who the true puppet masters are. They're all those techno fascists. It's the Peter Thiels. Peter Thiel was buddies with JD Vance. Peter Thiel is behind a lot of the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 stuff. Peter Thiel openly does not believe in democracy. Like this isn't a joke. This isn't hyperbole. The time for the blinders is they need to come off. Like you guys need to really like open up your eyes to what's going on here and what their plans really are.
Exactly. You need to stop talking about Karen and start talking about Peter. Because I mean, I've always felt it was really interesting. I'm like, why we got all these Karen jokes when these men are trying to kill us? Like they
And
literally are trying to kill us.
And oftentimes, Karens are weaponized and emboldened by a white man standing not too far away from them. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And with that, we're going to wrap up. What do you have to say? Anything else you would like to add, Kimberly, our medical professional?
make sure that you are caring for yourself when you are sick, because caring for yourself when you're sick is caring for your community. That means staying home if you're sick, wearing a mask if you can't, following hand washing guidelines or sanitizing your hands. It's really gross just in general to not wash your hands. That's a big thing that's happening in the right wing manosphere right now about not washing your hands. Please wash your hands. That's absolutely disgusting. If you see misinformation in public, combat it. You're going to alienate people and you're going to piss people off. If you see people that you don't know spouting misinformation in public, stop it. The time for politeness has ended. You can be a little kinder with your loved ones and your family, but expect to alienate some of them too. But it kind of is what it is, unfortunately. And I really would highly think twice before visiting Florida anytime soon.
Exactly. And with that, we're going to end up. But remember, please subscribe. And I'm like excited to listen, listen to read Kimberly's new health column. That will be like a regular thing on sprawlism. Yay! Support us. Support real media that is not racially segregated. Because really, it's. I'm not even getting into it. We'll talk about this later. And with that. Um, Good afternoon, good night, good evening. What should we say?
Have a wonderful day and thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Okay.